Hello and welcome back to the show. So I am really excited about the guest that I am bringing on to our podcast today, Bryan Knisley, who is not just an incredible real estate entrepreneur, but also a great friend of ours here at the Wolfpack at EXP. So just to give you guys a little bit of background on who Bryan is and the things that he's accomplished in his real estate career. So Bryan has been a real estate broker for over 20 years and has closed over 2,000 transactions, managing over $200 million in transactions as well. And get this, 600 of those transactions were actually closed within a 12-month period back in 2013. So we can't wait to dig into how you closed 600 transactions in 1 year. So Bryan's also a former broker owner of Better Life Realty and currently a mega team leader and icon agent here at eXp Realty. And he was used to be recognized as number two agent of all of US and number six agent in the world by Remax International. So Bryan has quite a resume for a real estate agent, a real estate broker, and also a real estate investor because he's also flipped over 200 properties as well. So, Bryan, man, I know that was a lot, but welcome to the show. I know there's going to be a ton for us to dig into today just based on this whole resume of yours alone.
Absolutely, man. I'm excited to be here, Kobe, and I appreciate you having me on. Been watching you for a while now. I love what you do. Bringing so much knowledge and value to the marketplace, and we appreciate what you're doing. So thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Bryan. I appreciate
Yeah.
it and appreciate you taking a little bit of your time today to, I'm sure, out of your busy schedule, doing everything that you're doing to share a little bit of your knowledge and your wisdom and some of your experience with our audience here today as well. So before we dig into anything, Bryan, I would love for you to be able to share a little bit about your background and how did you get started into, building the business and the career that you've had over the past, 20 plus years and accomplishing the things that you've done.
Yeah, and when I hear you read off those stats, those sound really impressive. And they're like, wait a second, that was me. It just feels like a lifetime, has passed. And that's why I love doing this stuff because there's so much value and so much experience that I have in my head and the things that I've been able to, blessed to been able to have done in the real estate industry. And, a lot of times I feel like it's just doing the right things and being in the right place at the right time and being the right person for that situation, and so just getting started, whether you're just getting started in the industry or you're a seasoned agent, I definitely think that there's value in basically finding your lane and just mastering your lane. For me, that's always been on the investing side of the business for me, and then that transitioned into more of the coaching, mentorship type of team building and brokerage building and all that, because now I have so much value to give back to agents, so I love doing that. But the start, man, I don't know. I'm born and raised in Michigan, dude, and I just couldn't wait to find my way out of there. It's a good place to grow up, but there's really not a lot of opportunities there as an adult and as an entrepreneur at heart. For me, I'm unemployable, man. I just, I've had opportunities to go to work for large corporations and I turned it down just because I can't imagine that, that 9 to 5 corporate job anymore because of what real estate provides us, the ability to create passive income, the ability to really kind of define our future and really have no ceiling to that future. It's pretty incredible. But just without boring you with a long backstory of my Michigan days, but I just decided, hey, I got to get out of here. 22 years old, I jumped in a car with a buddy of mine and we drove out to Vegas. And we were like, we'd never been to Vegas before, and we just drove into town and got a hotel. Ended up getting a 2 bedroom apartment here in early 20s. I've got a lot of Vegas stories though, dude. I can tell you some serious Vegas stories from our time. But ended up jumping into the casino industry back then. I opened the Hard Rock back in 1995, and worked there for dealing dice. So I was a craps dealer for about 8 years at the Hard Rock, and quickly realized that that was just a transitional thing, and that's when I got into real estate. That's kind of when it all started.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. So you guys just drove down from Michigan and picked Vegas, I'm sure, for business reasons, right? Not
No,
fun.
it was almost like throwing a dart at at a map. It's like, dude, we got to get out of here. If we don't get out of here now, we're gonna get stuck. So where do you want to go? Let's just do something right now while we still can. And thank God I did.
Yeah. I mean, it clearly worked out for you, right? On based on the business that you built in real estate. So how was that I mean, how was that experience? I mean, I'm sure, there was a lot of excitement and what you guys did, but just stepping out, right, at 22, which is close to my age right now, and going all the way to Vegas in a new city with, I'm sure, a ton of opportunities and a ton of things just going on in the city of Las Vegas. If anybody's been there, or heard stories of anything, so how was that experience like? Did that kind of shape you into just being able to handle more risks as you started building your business?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think we kind of gravitate towards how we were raised, or maybe even some of the limiting beliefs that we have as kids, and whether it's from a coach or a parent or a family member, somebody. There's a lot of things sometimes that hold us back, and I do a lot of, and hopefully we can get in some of that too, because I do a lot of self development work and coach and train on that stuff too. But it was just always kind of being on my own, and I always had to create any opportunities that I had in my life. I had to create them for myself. And so that makes you a much stronger person when you have there's no plan B, there's nothing to fall back on, so you're all in. And when I came to Vegas, I'm like, I'm not going back home. Like, I'm gonna make this work. And so when I got here, it's like, where's the biggest thing that I can do in Vegas? And there was a casino industry, and being in my 20s and not have any college experience or formal education past high school, I needed to find something. And that was it for me for a while, allowed me to get a consistent income and then try to figure out what I was going to do from there. But yeah, it's really just. Oh, by the way, when I moved out here with my buddy, 6 months later, he moved back home. And so I was here by myself. Didn't know a single soul in this entire city. And there's about 800,000 people living here. The population of Vegas was about 800,000 back then. Now we're pushing 3 million. So you can imagine the opportunity, the growth, and the changes that have happened here, and why I wanted to transition into real estate. During my casino years, I had owned a couple of companies, and being the entrepreneur that I am, I started companies and exited those companies. And then I stumbled onto real estate, and then basically led me to where I am today.
Yeah, so I mean, that makes the story even more interesting, right? So you had a friend there, right? Somebody you can kind of rely on a little bit, and then 6 months later they were gone. So now it's really just you making your way, right, in this new city with so much going on and starting your own business in a new industry. And now that you've jumped into real estate, right? I think, talking to a lot of agents who are getting their license, they might be in a similar maybe mindset, right? They're jumping into a new industry, but nowhere near kind of the starting afresh experience that you've had, right? So you mentioned personal development was a big thing that you're into as well, and that you teach to the agents that you work with and you coach as well. So for somebody who is getting into the industry now, or maybe starting here in this new year in 2025, about a month or so in, what are some of the best tips that you can give to somebody in order to start afresh, maybe, and start building the business that they want to build a lifestyle that they actually want to live, because you've done it and you were in a position that I think not a lot of people can say that they're experiencing as much, I would say, difficulty and taking as much risk on themselves as you did.
Yeah, and for newer agents getting into the industry, I would definitely say that there's tremendous opportunity for those that are willing to take it. Like, real estate is not it's not rocket science, let's be honest, but it's a very, very difficult industry, especially if you don't have the right guidance or the right mentors or just the right path or the tools or the, systems in order to get you to where, because we do a lot of things that we don't want to do for extended period of time. And if we're not able to do that, then we don't create the momentum that we need to create in order to make the turn from chasing business to attracting business. And that's really what separates the maybe the fly by night agents that really aren't committed, that think they can get in and it's easy. You're not going to last. Like, yeah, you'll sell a couple properties a year, but you're not going to make a career out of it. You're not going to make a business worth changing your life over, which you can absolutely do. So I actually have a 90-day accelerator program that I coach my agents on. I do tend to attract a lot of newer agents or agents that are struggling in the industry, maybe been in for a year or two, because of the foundational things that I teach and that I build. And it all starts with here, because most of the time we're our worst enemy. We beat ourselves up so bad that we tell ourselves a lot of things that aren't true as well. And so I start with, consistency over time is what creates success in real estate. That's the absolute magic pill. That's everything you need to know in real estate. Okay, so that's easy, but how do we do that? And that's where we really kind of need to start diving into, okay, what are you looking to get out of real estate? What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And then we develop a daily process. So, I like goal setting, but I also like implementation. Like, most of the time we're inundated with, we've got so much information and so much training out there that most of the time there's just paralysis by analysis type thing, where you get too much, you're just consuming all this information. And especially as a newer agent, I know what it's like. As a newer agent, you're wanting to feel like you have to know everything before you go out and do the things that you need to be doing. But it's the exact opposite, because it's on the job learning and training. And so I like to set 90-day goals. I have this 90-day accelerator accountability journal that helps my agents really just dive into, okay, where am I at right now? What are the things that I'm looking to create over the next 90 days? Because that creates habits. 90 days is a time it creates habits. So we focus on those small increments and get those wins along the way, and has them focusing on a daily. Like, what am I doing on a daily basis that's going to get more people into my funnel to provide more value, and continue to follow up with them until they need me? And then repeat, and then do the follow up afterwards, which is taking care of your database. And if you take care of your SOI, you can convert your SOI at 10%. If you get to where you're doing the right things with your SOI. And that's where most agents, I feel, and me included, like, that's where I've dropped the ball in my career, in my 20 plus career. I've dropped my SOI many times throughout my career because of the projects I'm working on or the things that I'm doing. And if you want longevity and you want to be able to exit the business at any time, that's one of the things that you're really going to have to pay attention to and take care of your database, because your relationship with your database is going to be a direct reflection of your success in real estate.
I love that. I love that you mentioned, when you're starting out, right, and when you're working with new agents, you want them to make sure that they define what is it that they want to get out of real estate, to find out their strengths and their weaknesses, and then find out what is an implementable plan that they can do every day. Because, like you said, there's a lot of goal setting, but you can set this big goal, and then that's the start and the end of it, right?
Right.
And then you don't do anything for 365 days, and then you do it again, right? You set your goals again on
Right.
January 1st, and then you don't do anything again, and it's year after year after year. So the implementation part, I think, is so important. And I love that you created a 90-day plan for agents, because now what they can do is they can look at their goals, and then they can figure out what is the daily actions that they need to be taking in order to actually hit, what is it that they're looking for, the goals that they've set as well. So that's super important.
Yeah, and it's really, for lack of a better term, dummy proof. So it's literally checking boxes every day. And it's not me telling you what you need to do to be successful in your career. You're telling yourself what I want to get out of my business and what I'm willing to sacrifice in order to get that. And then we hold you accountable to it. It's like, listen, you told me what you wanted. I'm just holding you accountable to what you tell me you say you want. And I'm going to find out how bad you want it, because it's going to take you wanting it really, really bad in order to gain success that you're looking to create. But once you get there, it's brilliant. But this is the other part that I do want to also make mention is, there's been many, many times in my 20-year career where I worked my ass off to get to the top of the food chain. And then I was sitting on my throne, like when I was, I did 578 deals or 87 deals, whatever it ended up being, in 2013 when I was working with a hedge fund. I took my foot off the accelerator at the time when I needed to be doubling down the most. Like, just really, I mean, if you take one nugget from today, which I hope I can provide at least one nugget for somebody to take away, it's when you're on top of your game is when you need to hit the accelerator the most. Double down, use that momentum, use the revenue for more leverage, use everything that you have in order to continue to build and expand, if that's what you're looking for. right? But most of us, anybody that's probably listening to your podcast is going to be a true entrepreneur looking to build a business and continue to grow and just build something as big as they can. If that's the case, then use that momentum and use that leverage in order to continue to create more. I sometimes worked my ass off so hard to get to where I got to. I'm like, God, I deserve a break. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, you don't. You don't deserve shit. You deserve to keep working and building it until you built it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's such a big lesson for people, right? Anybody who's accomplished, any type of success, they've probably had a similar experience where, they've gotten to a point where they felt they've, kind of conquered the world, or they've hit their goals, or they're even surpassed it. And then they feel like, finally I did it. Maybe, I'm doing fine, right? That's kind of the mentality they kind of have. It's just natural for us to think about that, especially when we're winning, right? Or in a season where we're winning, you think, I think I'm doing fine. Everything I've been doing up to this point has gotten me here. And then that's when we start slipping a little bit, right? We stop doing the things that got us to the point that we're at. And then that's when that's when we realize that we need to step back onto the gas again and maybe work even harder, moving forward and accomplish more. So
And we know one thing, that nothing lasts forever, especially in real estate, right? This is a cyclical industry, it's cyclical business where you're constantly having to reinvent yourself. So what you've done yesterday or what you did last year is not necessarily going to give you success tomorrow or this year. So you've got to constantly be looking at the market and looking at what you're doing, which is another reason why my accountability journals, I highly recommend that agents are writing down, not only their thoughts on a daily basis of what I'm looking to accomplish today, and my one thing that I need to get done every single day. So there's a one thing in each of our days that we go through and in the week that absolutely has to be accomplished. And if we don't accomplish those things that we say we know what we need to do, and we say this is the one thing, no matter what happens today, that needs to be accomplished, and it doesn't get done, now you have to reflect inside as to, okay, what are the patterns that are keeping me from doing the things that I need to do? What is the thought process that's keeping me from that? What is my self-talk? What am I telling myself? All of those things, it gets put into the journal, and then you start to identify those patterns over time of, holy shit, I didn't realize I was doing this on a regular basis, and it just keeps pushing off. And then once you start to realize that, you can do more things that are working and less things that are not working. It makes you more effective and efficient in your business, because let's be honest, we only have the same amount of time, all of us. It's a matter of what you do with your time on a daily basis that's going to create that success. But just really quickly, I want to touch on too, being, thinking that when you get to the top of the heap that you've made it and you can relax now. And, shifting and pivoting is a huge part of this business. And I really learned that the most when, the height of my career. I went from, getting into the business of working with buyers and sellers to gravitating toward investors, jumping into the investing world, and started working for some private capital groups, designing platforms for buying non-performing note pools, REOs, things like that. That got me into the trustee sale auction, where we started buying properties and flipping properties at the auction, which introduced me to hedge funds at that point, because they came into town when the bottom of the barrel. So we went from 2003 to 2006 was probably the easiest business in real estate that anybody's ever had, because back then we had, all the subprime loan industry back then, where you could buy multiple properties just by stating your income and stating your assets. And we've created all of that mess that created. And then once that the 2006 crash hit, we went into the 2008 era, 2010, 2012, which we hit the bottom of the market. I jumped into the mortgage industry to learn that side of it, and then got into the asset management side of it, of flipping and properties, and starting to work with the hedge fund. And that's when I really got the opportunity to, I would say too, agents hopefully are mindful of the way that they conduct themselves with their vendor partners and with their clients and with everybody in the marketplace. I've always treated everybody in my industry as I'm working for them, and I need them more than they ever need me, no matter who it is, because I want them to want to work with me, and I want them to want to bring opportunities my way. And that's how I got in front of a hedge fund, actually two hedge funds at the time, that we were basically interviewing to see which one we wanted to work with. And without setting myself up and putting myself in the right places and building those partnerships in the industry, I never would have had that opportunity, and I never would have been able to close as many properties that I've been able to close. So it's truly important that because I know a lot of times agents get, they get REO accounts or they're big short sale agents and they get tons and tons of listings and they forget what it's like to be on the other side. Then all of a sudden the market switches and you're on the other side. So just don't forget about, you know, it can turn at any time.
Yeah, I think you almost have to be a little stoic about it, right? Kind of in the industry because you never, right, when things are going really, really well, you just know that it's not gonna be like this forever, right? So you can't act like, you can't act like you own the world or you're the king of the hill and treat everybody, kind of like beneath you because you know that eventually when things turn, you're still going to need everybody around you, all the relationships you've built, all the vendors, other agents in the industry as well. You've done a really great job of doing that, right? Of creating relationships. You have a really big network of people who are in business that you can refer, your clients to, and you can refer your SOI to as well. I've seen a lot of you post a lot of that information on your social media as well. And I think that's what, agents need to understand, especially if they're on their way to doing really, really well, or having a really good year it's, not to be negative, but like, it's not going to last forever. And you can't act like that what you've done so far is enough and that's it. And you don't have to do anything else, after that as well. Um, and
Yeah, I had to shift and pivot so many times in my career. And if I wasn't prepared for it, you're basically starting over. And that's very deflating in an industry where it takes you a long time to create a momentum and success in the first place. So just don't take your foot off the gas because we were flipping properties at the auction, buying them down there in 2012, 20 or actually 2010 through about 2012. We were doing really well in a declining market. We were getting our investors over 20% annualized return on these on investment, most of the time over 30% in a declining market because there was opportunity for us to purchase at the right price because the market was declining. So it allowed us to be able to have opportunities to purchase investment properties and then turn them over on the back end with move-in ready properties in a market where everything was vacant and destroyed because everybody's pissed off about their short sales. And like it was a really bad time, but we were making the best of it. It's like, where do we find ourselves? What is the biggest need in the marketplace? And I want to put myself in front of that right now. And back then it was move-in ready properties because everything was abandoned and vacant. They were all short sales and REOs. And we'd come up with these move-in ready flipped properties that were flying off the shelves in a declining market because we had what was needed in the marketplace for the few buyers that were able to take advantage. But then 2012 hit and the absolute bottom of the barrel. And that's when the hedge funds started coming in and buying single family homes. Prior to 2012, hedge funds did not buy single family homes. I mean, we're talking about some of the largest hedge funds in the country. We had Invitation Homes here, which is backed by Blackstone. We had the the company that I worked for, and there was tons of other institutional investors here in town who were buying properties, and they wiped out our margins down at the auction. So I no longer had a flip business anymore. So I had to put myself in front of these guys because I said, what's the need in the marketplace right now? Well, hedge funds want inventory. So I'm going to put myself in front of that. So I lined up those, being able to try to get there. And you know how I got the account with Colony American Homes? It was picking up the phone. When my phone rang, I picked it up and the opportunity was on the other side. So answer your damn phones.
yeah, what a great tip for agents, right? Because it's a good lead in into my next question, which is, let's talk about that year 2013 for you, right? Close to 600 transactions personally closed. A lot of agents don't see that in their lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk through that story if you don't mind of, you know, that opportunity coming up. How were you able to even manage so many transactions? I'm sure there was a lot of systems you had in place, to take advantage of that, and just overall, how did that happen? Because that's such a crazy and interesting story that you don't hear a lot of in the industry.
Yeah, and I think back on those days and think about how crazy that really was. I mean, at the time, I was so busy I couldn't even think about it. I couldn't even really. Yeah, we celebrated along the way, but it was like, let's how long can we keep this train rolling, is what we were really thinking the entire time. But jumping into it again, it was just me answering my phone at the right time and talking to the right people, and the opportunity got introduced to me. And then, when hedge funds came into town, they were looking for good operators down at the auction. because they wanted to buy off of the MLS, and they wanted to buy off the auction platform, because back then there was about 800 properties a day that were on the calendar to be cried at the auction. And so there's a tremendous opportunity down there for them to pick up inventory, because hedge funds, they have to put money to work very, very quickly. Like, they want to get it off the streets and into assets. But buying one house at a time had never been an option for institutional investors. They bought multifamily, they bought 100 plus doors, apartment complexes and office buildings and all of that stuff where they could manage them. So this was a new asset class that they were performing at the time. And so we were a big part of being able to help them establish that, and help them become more effective and efficient at buying single family homes. And so, being the operator, the trusted operator that we were, with trusted investors' funds down at the auction, we made a name for ourselves. And I was able to get interviews with hedge funds, because the title companies and some of the operators down there had thrown my name out when they were saying, "Hey, who are the people that we need to look to for this?" So again, it goes back to that story about creating those bridges and never burning a bridge. I've burned one bridge in my 20 plus year career, and it wasn't by choice, and I regret it every single day after this. But building those relationships allowed me to have that opportunity and get in. And once we got in, it was like, "Hey, you guys are doing things completely inefficient. Let us help you," because we had the systems and everything set up for doing kind of volume, all the things that we were doing in our business already. We were able to bring value to them, and improve their processes and their systems, and they loved us for it. So we got to continue buying for them. It basically wrote me a blank check and said, "Buy everything that fits within this box." And so we did everything we possibly could. I had hundreds of short sales in escrow at any given time during those 2 years. It was crazy times, man.
Yeah, I mean it really is crazy to think about, right? Because you guys are so efficient at what you did, and then I'm sure there's a lot of agents out there who think like, I would never be able to be, the manager for a huge hedge fund or a huge, kind of equity partner or something like that, right? Where they can essentially represent this entire organization that's buying up properties everywhere. But you did it, right? And you actually were able to go in and offer them a ton of value, and that's what led you to closing close to 600 transactions in a 12-month period. So I mean, just on the management side, right? How are you able to manage so many transactions at once? Did you have, I mean, obviously you guys had systems in place, but did you guys have to kind of improve on that, hire more staff members? Was there a lot of pivoting within that 1 year as more transactions started to accumulate, or were you guys pretty prepared for that because you had experience on that side?
No, I was absolutely not prepared for any of it. I brought myself to the table as if I was, because again, that just, your confidence and how you go into these transactions. In the previous few years of me having to go out and raise funds for my asset management company with investors, taught me how to come to the table and provide value to investors, and not be, not go in with butterflies and be so nervous that you come off as not the right person for the job, if you will. Right. That again just goes into like, and that just goes the same thing with anybody's real estate business, like your first listing presentation. It's the same thing. You're going to be nervous as hell, but the more you do it, the more confident you get at it, the more listings that you're going to bring in. So I had to do the same thing on the investor side and raising funds for our asset management company to flip properties. And then when we had the opportunity to sit in front of investors like hedge funds, we had the ability to go in there and talk intelligently and show them what we could do for them. And in turn, we were able to take advantage of that opportunity. But on the far as the management side of it, yes, I had a partner at the time who was helping with all this. Fortunately, he's very good at underwriting and code writing and spreadsheets. So he was the back end and the analytical side of everything. I hired 2 asset managers and 6 escrow assistants for my team at that time, just to service this one client, because we were writing 40, 50 offers a day sometimes. And the only way to write that many offers and get them into the marketplace is to have a system and write code in order to be able to do that. So we would basically do the initial underwriting, send it over to the hedge fund. They would send it back to us with all of the properties with our max pay. And then we had an underwriting system that would actually take all of that information. It would go into transaction desk. It would write all of the contracts for us. This was before AI, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. And it would spit out all those contracts, and then I would have my asset managers go in, take them out to the streets, and get to the listing agents and negotiate those contracts. And that was a daily process for us. Every single day we did that. We were sending out 20 to 30 offers. And so we got so efficient at one point, the hedge fund had to stop the acquisitions because they couldn't manage the inflow of the receiving of these properties, and then getting them move-in ready, and then getting the property management set up. And because it was all brand new for everything. So we were able to improve on that process a lot. And then I tried to jump into the property management side and said, hey, I could do a better job on the property management side as well. Let me handle that, because then we could buy more properties. Like, I wanted to close more properties, but they had to, they kept pushing us back. But that didn't end up working out, just because they respected me and told me, hey, if I give you this, we're just going to take it away from you a year from now, and it's not worth it for you. Like, oh, thank you. Like, you just saved me a ton of money. So again, just being efficient, and having, just find your lane, man. It's not that this business is not that difficult if you find your lane and become a master at it.
And you clearly done that, right? And I love that you were able to build kind of this automation, right? You mentioned you have to write code in order to build this system where they can write like 40 to 50 offers a day and have that much deal flow coming in. And that was all back, before automation was cool, essentially, right? So it's still
It was
possible.
2012, 2013. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was that was before anybody knew what ChatGPT was, or I don't know if Zapier was around back then or not, but yeah, I think that was so cool that you guys were able to just kind of innovate on the spot just to meet the essentially the customer, the client demand, and have that in place immediately before anybody else did.
Yeah. And it's also surrounding myself with the right people. Like, if I didn't have the right partners and the right people surrounding me, and they all made me look good, because everything ran through my license, but I had an entire team of people behind me in the background that were making it all happen. Like, yeah, I worked my ass off too. I mean, I gained 30 pounds. I thought I had a heart attack. It was like having an 800-pound gorilla. Working for a hedge fund is like having an 800-pound gorilla on your back, because when 99.9% of your business is coming in the door from one client, you're going to make sure that you're going to do everything you can to bend over backwards to make sure that client's happy. And I worked 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, most of the time, just making sure that we were keeping them happy and keeping those transactions rolling in, because I knew it wasn't going to last forever. Like, I'll do this for as long as I possibly can. And, 2.5 years, close to 1,000 properties closed. It was well worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. But and that brings up an interesting point as well. You mentioned that about 99% of your business came through this one hedge fund client, right? So in those years, how are you able to manage the other relationships that you've built, the sphere of influence that you have, and the previous clients and just normal clients, normal clients as in buyers and sellers, for retail, their own homes. Were you able to still keep them engaged and still service them, or you just kind of said, hey, for this next 2 years, gonna have to find somebody else, maybe provide a referral, and just have that conversation with them?
Yeah, I gravitated immediately towards the investing side of real estate, because I really love that side of it, the numbers, the challenges, everything that came along with it. So my wife and I both started in the industry together as a team when we first started back in 2000. And so she was typically taking care of our personal business, if you will. And I was always on the investing side, the entrepreneurial side of the business, and building that out. So, but at that time, we were so busy with closing transactions, it was like you had no time for anything else. And
Yeah.
that's when the day the hedge fund told me that because they had to have a blended rate on their portfolio of at least 6% annualized, a 6% yield on their overall portfolio. And once we started buying, because sometimes we were bidding $30,000, $40,000 above list price and bidding against other hedge funds, and they bid themselves out of the market very, very quickly in a couple of years. But they brought us from the very, very bottom. I mean, we were at like 50 cents a foot in Vegas at 2012, at the bottom of the market. Like, when the hedge fund started buying, they started competing and buying more inventory, and it was bringing more buyer confidence into the marketplace, and brought us out of the very bottom of the barrel, if you will. But then, 2.5 years, the more properties they bought, the more their yields got squeezed. And then every time we bought a property that started to inch towards that 6% yield or less, they're like, we're done. We're stopping buying. So that was the worst day and the best day of my life when they told me that. Because it was like I had an 800-pound gorilla off my back, but at the same time, it was like that was 99.9% of my business for the last 2.5 years. Now what?
Right. Yeah. So like, so how were you able to adjust from that afterwards? You just picked up the phone again and started working with more investors, or are you kind of just going back and revisiting previous clients?
We went back to the auction, started, going buying properties, raising funds again through investors, and flipping properties. And so that was my process. And then eventually that led into me building a team. Having all of those transactions going through my license, I got a lot of exposure. Right? So I've got a lot of opportunities now coming through my door because everybody's attracted to production. And when you've been the number two agent in the country for a large, brokerage chain, that brings a lot of attention and brings a lot of opportunity to you. And I wanted to try to take advantage of that. So started building a team, went to Keller Williams, built a team over there, ended up building my own brokerage, transitioned. I'm like, hey, if I'm going to build a team, I might as well have my own brokerage because I have an asset management company that we run our transactions through the brokerage. I don't want to have a broker buy-in. So I'll do it myself. And that's when everything changed for me. Like, be careful what you ask for sometimes, because as any if there's any small independent brokerage owners out there that are maybe between 50 and 100 agents, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Margins are thin, time is tight, you got compliance, you've got like financing, you've got payroll, onboarding, everything that it takes to run a brokerage. It takes you away from all of the things you got into it for in the first place. So now, without going too deep into that, but it's a very lonely position as a broker owner because you're the top and you have no one to go to anymore. Everybody comes to you for solutions. Everybody comes to problems. Everybody, so, and I was okay with that because that was a position that I had asked for and I felt I was ready for it because of all the experience and expertise I had in the marketplace. But what I wasn't prepared for was you know, the the stunt in the growth that was happening because of me associating growth with pain. Subconsciously I was in consciously I was saying I want to grow, I want to recruit agents, and I want to bring agents on and build this business. But subconsciously I was like, every time I bring an agent on, I've got to onboard them, I've got to train them, I've got to retain them, I've got to do everything. And so it was at a point where I need to look for another solution, which is where I found the Wolfpack and where I found EXP, and the ability to now offload all of that liability, all of my onboarding, all of my accounting, everything that was preventing me from working with agents and helping them build a sustainable business. That's life changing. And so now, a year and a half in, I couldn't be happier. And the amount of leverage that I have now with partners like you and everybody in the Wolfpack, and the amount of training now that my agents have access to because of the platform and the way that Glenn Sanford laid this cloud-based brokerage out. It's the most brilliant business model in real estate that I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of stuff, and I've studied it for a very long time before I made that transition, because I knew it wasn't just about me. It was about my 35 agents that I had in my brokerage at the time. Is it right for me? But is it right for them is the bigger question, because I want to take them with me. And I have a fiduciary to them because they have families and they're building businesses. And it absolutely was. I had the highest conversion rate that I know of out of any brokerage that moved over to EXP. I didn't have the volume numbers, but I had as far as the conversion rate, I had like a 95% conversion rate of all of my agents coming over with me to EXP to take advantage of this opportunity because it's huge.
Yeah. And that's a big statement, I think, because there's a lot of brokerages out there who they come over, right? Like you mentioned, there might be bigger brokerages, but they don't have like a 95% conversion rate of agents coming with them over this new partnership that you've created with EXP and the Wolfpack as well. So what do you attribute to that? Because obviously you spend quite a bit of time building your own brokerage and making sure that the agents are successful who actually join with you, and you've continued to do that here at EXP as well. But what would you attribute to such a high retention rate with the agents that you currently have? Is it just the relationship you've built with them? Is it the success that you've shown that you can get them to where they want to go if they do the things that they've agreed to do? What would you attribute to that high retention rate?
I would say there's a couple of things. I mean, I can't compare it to anything because I don't know anybody else. But what my experience is I believe that number one, your relationship with your agents is absolutely key and important in the trust building that you can do, and knowing that you always they always know that you have their back type of a thing, which is, that's what any brokerage should be doing if they want to, attract, recruit, retain agents. But at the same time, I always try to make my relationships a win-win partnership as much as I possibly can, because if it's not a win-win on both sides and one party is over the other, then it's never going to last. Eventually, the party that's not getting at least the 50%, at least half of the benefit, they're going to find a way somewhere else to go get half of that benefit. So when I really took a look at this model and I looked at, hey, if I make the jump, what's in it for my agents and how do I sell it to them? How do I get their buy-in is, I guess, a better way of, of stating that, because I'm not selling them anything. And just like, when we have agents partner with us, I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I just want to show you the opportunity that I know that you might not know. And once you realize what that opportunity is, you're going to want to jump on it. And it's okay if you don't, but at some point, you're probably going to want to revisit that and take a look at it. And that was me as a broker owner. I'm like, I hate EXP. Get out of here. I had agents coming in all the time trying to recruit me. I'm like, I don't need you. I have my own brokerage. And I hated the model only because I didn't get introduced to the right people and I didn't understand it. I thought I understood it, but I didn't. And that's when I got introduced to Mike Sherrard. And when I started sitting down and talking to Mike, he's like, hey, you're a smart guy. You're an entrepreneur. Let me run the numbers for you. Let me show you what it looks like on paper. Forget about all the feature benefit crap that people spew on you. Let me run the numbers for you. And you can see what it would look like right now. And you can see what it looks like, the possibilities in 5 years from now. And when I saw that, I couldn't unsee it. And I left that conversation very, very confused. And that's all I could think about for the next 6 months. And then I started translating that and realizing that this is the only way out for me, because as a small independent brokerage owner, there's no exit. There's zero exit. Like, even if you find an exit, you've got enough agents and enough production, you still are the product as the broker owner. So you're going to have to stay on. You're going to have to create retention over the next 3 or 5 years. And if you're going to do that, build it, you might as well not exit it. So I started looking at what is my exit and what are the exits for my agents. And there wasn't one as a small independent brokerage owner. And I was already beating my head against the wall trying to figure out how to, get past the growth pain, push and pull. And so this was the option for me. And now I'm able to free up my time to do the things that I want to do, which is helping agents build and grow businesses and give them the opportunity to do the exact same thing that I had as a brokerage owner, because now they can create passive income, they can get equity ownership, they can get duplication of efforts. They have, what I mean? It just goes on and on, the value benefit for them. And when I brought this to my agents to tell them that I was making the transition, I went in with such passion and fire on this because I was so fired up about it, because I realized that this is the future and this is the opportunity, that they couldn't ignore it. It was like, wow, he really truly believes in this as much as he believes in it, and he's showing us the benefits to us as the agents, I have to go. Like, I have to check this out. I would, and so I think that that's really what gave me the ability to have a high conversion rate with my brokerage is really just 100% bought in. I said, I'm going to make this transition whether none of you come with me or all of you come with me. That's how much I believe in it. Now, obviously, I want every single one of you guys with me, but I'm willing to make the sacrifice because I know in the long run, this is the best thing for everybody.
Yeah, and that's a powerful statement, right? Because that means that you truly believe in what it is that you're doing and the partnerships that you're going to be creating as well. And I think that's a big, it's a big statement for agents to hear, right? That you're going to be making this decision, and it's not just based on, how many people I can retain, right? It's based on,
Right.
this is truly what I believe is going to be best for me and also best for you guys as well. And this is, you mentioned something that's so crucial to the EXP model and why it's so successful, is that as a brokerage owner, you're now able to give the agents that you work with and you've partnered with previously the same opportunities that you have as a brokerage owner, right? To be able to go out there and create their own teams and to build an exit strategy for themselves. Whereas in the past, they wouldn't be able to do that unless if, they left your brokerage and became a competitor, right? And they
Right.
would have the same headaches that you do as an independent brokerage owner.
Yeah. And there's now a lot of, competitors out there to the cloud-based model and the rev share building and all of that stuff. So whatever, whatever works for you, just find something that allows you to get an exit out of the industry. Because coming from somebody that's been doing this for close to a quarter century, I wish I had started, and then there's so many people that say the same thing. I wish I had started building this out a lot sooner than I did. But it's never too late, right? So now I'm focused on building out my agents and helping them do the exact same thing that I just did. And then we identify people in their organization that we can identify leaders to help them do the same thing. And that's really truly where the power of this, of this revenue share building process comes in, is the duplication of it. It's not just me anymore as a small broker owner trying to go out and recruit local agents from my micro market. It's now I have a global real estate business that I run for $85 a month. Like, and I have zero liability for the agents. I mean, obviously I'm still training my agents. I'm still doing all the things that I would do because you still have, responsibility for that. But I'm no longer signing the checks. I'm no longer signing the contracts for each of those agents. That's a very freeing thing for me as a small independent broker owner, especially in this litigious society that we're in right now. All of the lawsuits that are coming through with the DOJ and some of these now smaller independent brokerage owners being named in these lawsuits, that will destroy an independent broker owner. One lawsuit could destroy you because they're already working on thin margins, the majority of them, right? If they're not in production, especially if you're in production, you're trying to do production and build a brokerage and do, what I mean? It's too much. And so I was drowning, and now I'm no longer drowning.
Yeah, it's a good feeling to have, right? Because a lot of a lot of people from the outside looking in, they don't necessarily understand that owning your own brokerage is such a stressful thing to do, and the margins and how low they truly are. And I didn't even know that until I came over to EXP as well and started hearing stories just like your own of former brokerage owners who were saying they were their margins were just paper thin, and then when they moved over to EXP, that's really when they started even being profitable and can consider stepping out of production themselves. So it's a big part of it. And above that, right, above just the EXP business model and the revenue share model and what it's allowed you as an independent brokerage owner to do to reduce your liability and increase your scalability from a local market share to now a global market share, you know, would you mind talking a little bit more about just the organization that we're part of, the Wolfpack, right? Which is almost like, if you think about it, another brokerage on top of the EXP business model, and really just what separates us as a group versus just joining any other EXP agent as their sponsor.
I would go much further than that of being, just like another brokerage on top of brokerage. It's more like another powerhouse training program. It's like having, Tony Robbins as the top of the heap, and you coming in and now you having access to all of his stuff. And then you got access to all of Dean Gracioso's stuff for free. And then you've got anybody that Dean has in his circle, you've got access to all of their stuff. And so now it's like it opens you up to this entire really partnerships with some of the people that are doing the biggest things in the industry right now and today, and having access to that. But not just for me, is like I always had access to that as a brokerage owner because I was always seeking those types of things because I had to absorb those things. So I had to hire coaches and trainers and buy training programs and buy systems so that I could learn it, so that I could be the source of that information for my agents and my independent brokerage, so that I could retain them for number one. And then I could attract more agents to bring them in because they see the production, they see the training, they see the transformation of agents that come into my brokerage and then start producing. Well, now it's like, now that we've got that times 10, and that's how I met Mike, by the way. That's how I met Mike Schreier. I was like, I need to get really proficient with my social media and with YouTube. Like, I want to build my YouTube channel out. I started my YouTube channel like 7 years ago doing fix and flip before and after, videos. And then I stopped doing it for many, many years because I just got busy with the hedge funds and all that. But I said, I need to teach my agents this, and I'm not the top guy for it. So I'm not going to try to teach them that. So let me go find the best person in the industry right now for this particular thing that I want to learn. And I will go pay for his coaching. I will pay for his systems. I'll learn it and I'll give it to my agents. Well, that's where I found Mike Sherrard, and I bought his Social Agent Academy, spend my own money to go, and was happy to do so. And as I started teaching my agents, they were so hungry for it, they wanted more and more and more, and I couldn't learn it fast enough to teach it to them. And so, and that's, I guess, what leads me into the whole thing is that when I partnered with Mike and the Wolfpack and Connor and everybody, it's like now I don't have to be the source of that information anymore. Now I feel free to give them access to everything that we have access to, which is such high level training. It's now they can consume it at their own time and go through it, and I can just support them with it. And what else it's allowed me to do is free up my time to go back to production. I went the opposite direction. I've been out of production for, I don't know, 8 years. I don't even know when the last time I did transaction was. I'm actually back in production now because I'm so excited to lead the charge for my agents. It's like, I want to lead by example and do all the things that I tell you to do on a daily basis and show you that they do work. And so I'm going to track through my own production and going back into business. And since I've been doing that just over the last 2 months, we've already got 3 closings scheduled for this month. I've got 2 listings on the market. We've got 2 flip your own house programs going right now. We've got, I mean, so it's like I'm doing the things that I'm showing them how to create success doing, but now I'm leading by example. And then I'm going to attract agents by doing what I say that they should be doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And I think it's so interesting, right? It's actually freed up your time so you can go back into doing production and
Yeah.
setting a better example, right? And just kind of really tying it back to everything you said, even from the very beginning of this interview, which is, pick your own lane. And I think, what you're saying is that the Wolfpack and the amount of resources you now have access to has allowed you to do that, right? It's allowed you to not be everywhere all at once, but really master your lane and then teach your agents that. And then if they want to learn more information, right, on things that maybe you need to learn or need to improve on, like YouTube video marketing or a different type of strategy when it comes to production or, agent attraction, whatever it is that they wanted to learn, they can now learn it from the top person, the master at that in the industry. And you don't have to have that responsibility to learn everything and be the jack of all trades essentially at that point.
Yeah, and everybody in our organization is happy to share that information because they're incentivized to do so. The brilliance of this, cloud-based platform is that everybody is incentivized to do that because we're incentivized for production and we're incentivized for growth. So you have those two, so providing as much training as you possibly can to all of our agents. Without production, we don't have rev share. So we need to produce. And so everybody wants to provide as much value to our organization as we possibly can to get them producing and get them attracting other producers that we can now partner with in our organization so that everybody wins. It's brilliant, which is why I was so fired up about it when I got out of my brokerage. Because I was so far down in the weeds, Kobe, when I was in my brokerage that I couldn't see, I don't know what that analogy is. You can't see the tree, the forest through the trees or whatever it is. That was me, dude. I was like just drowning. And I'm like, something's got to change. And I know there's a lot of other brokerage owners out there right now that are saying the same thing. Please reach out to me. I'll give you the real story. I'll lay it out for you. I'll show you exactly what's my experience has been for. And you determine whether it's right for you or not. But at some point, you're going to want to look at some sort of system that's going to allow you to do what I've been able to do with my brokerage and free up your time. And by the way, these new commission checks that I got coming in through my own production, they're pretty nice too.
Right.
Right. It's a nice addition to my business right now.
Yeah, exactly. So awesome, man. Well, Brian, I appreciate you for sharing everything you did here today. I think it was a lot of value for any agents out there or any broker owners out there who are struggling or maybe want to just upgrade and improve and level up their business. I think you've shared just a ton of great advice from your personal experience and the things you've done and the lessons you've learned as well. And I really thank you for that. So if there's anybody out there, right, maybe they're an independent brokerage owner who's kind of in a similar position that you were when you were first, making the jump over here to EXP, or you were struggling, or maybe they're an individual agent, right, wanting to get into the investment side, want to improve their production, or maybe they're newer to the industry, right, and they want to really hit the ground running. What are some of the best ways for people to either reach out directly to you or to follow some of your content to get more familiar with what you do and really follow your journey?
Yeah, YouTube. You can reach out to me on YouTube. Vegas Vibes or Bryan Knisley is my YouTube channel, and Instagram is probably the best way if you want to reach out to me personally. Just do a DM on Instagram, just Bryan Knisley, and be happy to help out. And what I'll say too with brokerage owners, like look at the numbers. Like there's all kinds of feature benefits that people are going to try to sell you, but look at what the numbers look like and just make your decision based on that.
Yep, exactly. You can't argue the numbers, right? That's what we hear a lot in our calls in our business conversations as well. So Brian, man, appreciate you. We'll make sure to leave your links in the description down below so that way people can find you easily. But other than that, man, thanks again for being on the show. Is there any last pieces of advice, any last tips you would just like to leave with us here before we let you sign off?
Be better.
Love it. Love it, man. Brian, appreciate you being here today and sharing your knowledge. Appreciate you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next show. Take
Awesome. Thanks,
care.
Kevin.